Alright, now we're live. Let's try that again. Okay, so I'm going to start off by walking through the integrated version of Collaborate in Desire to Learn, or Course Den as we call it here. So I'm sharing my screen with you. I'm inside of a blank basic course, and I'm going to show you a few ways to utilize that and places you can share it. So feel free to interject. I mentioned that if you want any questions, please interject. So you notice right here on the very top, I actually have some office hours posted in my news item. I'm using the Google Hangout to do this. So and I'll get how I done that in just a minute. I'll just show you a few places and I'll come back to the Google Hangout. But this could be a Google Hangout. It also could be Collaborate. You can do this a couple different ways. As far as office hours, I frankly prefer Google Hangouts. I think they're smoother for the students and I just think they work a little better. The downside probably of Google Hangout is it has a limited capacity, if you will. I can't talk today. Collaborate will hold more people in the room that can interject and interact than Hangout will. Hangout has a cap of 15 live kind of computers in the room at one time. So, and this is actually all being recorded as well, so you can rewatch the whole thing later on YouTube. But you're welcome to take pictures if you like. But so that's kind of the difference. Hangout to me is a little bit easier as far as the technology side. It's a little smoother as far as sharing your screen. As far as some pieces of it, it works, in my opinion, a little better. However, there are some downsides and some things that it cannot do that Collaborate can. So with that being said, again, if I was to click this little virtual room, it'll actually open another. I'm already in a Hangout now, so I probably don't want to do that, but it'll actually open a Hangout. And this is a static type room. There's a room that I built that every time someone clicks it, they go to the same room. So I can share this with my students, and I'll show you how I did that in just a few minutes. So that's one method. You can post these kind of things in a news item. Usually that's probably done for a virtual office hours type thing, or you can put them inside of your different modules. So if I want to put that in a module, I don't know if I have one yet. Yeah, I do. So I've actually already made a link here in my module. I'll show you this and I'll walk through how I did it. As a student, they're going to click on this. See if I have my rooms. Give it a minute to. Here we go. And I have one room that I've already built inside of Collaborate. So I could actually have more than one room. I might have one room for my office hours, one room for maybe a different room for different groups in my class. There's various reasons you may have more than one room. So because these rooms can be archived, that's one reason you may want to have them named differently, because as you're archiving them, when you come back later or students come back later to watch the archives, it's going to be based on the archive name is going to be based on the room name, including the date and the time that they're archived. So that's where the students are going to access it, and that's where you'll access it as an instructor to actually enter the room. If I just click here on the name here in a second, it's a little slow, but I'll get a pop-out here on the right in just a minute. I could, of course, just click this little purple square. I guess it's not really an of course because it's not that obvious. But this purple square basically lets me join the room. If I click on the name of the room, it opens this sidebar here. And what this sidebar allows me to do, I'm going to get that a little bigger, is not only see the information and how it's set up, but I can, if I want to, click Edit Session and modify the room. So right now, it's kind of basic here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Options. And it tells me my settings currently, like where they're at right now. Everybody's not a moderator. These are kind of your base settings, and I can do some stuff to change those. I can also pre-add some content, and this is a little trickier than it sounds, frankly. So the whiteboard content, when I get into Collaborate, I'll show you that, but I can actually pre-create kind of a starting place in my room. And once I open the Collaborate room, I'll show you that. And I can also upload some like MP4s, MP3s, but they've got to be a little smaller size. I realize if they're very big, it may not upload into the session. So if you want to preload some movie type files, you can do that as well. And I can do that just by clicking Edit Session. Then I'm given some more options there. So I can actually just drag and drop things on here or click and browse for them and modify the settings here. So, all right. So instead of modifying this one, I'm actually going to create a new one. So I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to click this little sidebar to slide that back out of the way. And I'm comparing, say, create session. We'll do that. Library is a little slow when you're setting it up, so if you have a itchy trigger finger, if you will, you might click that 6 times before it opens up. So let's create a session. I'm just going to play fun room because we all like to go into a fun room. I do anyway. And I'm going to say start right now. So the start and end time, frankly, I would probably leave it as start now and with no end time unless you actually have a specific event that you're trying to set up and you really want to make sure that's the only time you use that room. If you want to reuse the room, just don't put an end time. It's fine. So basically that room will be available until the end of your semester. This early entry only applies if you're not starting right now. Really what it means is your students can get in ahead of time, make sure their computer's set up to use the system. So that's the first part of it. I'm going to click on options here. Again, my default options are pretty good. I really don't need to modify them. If you're setting up a room so that your students can basically, so you have groups of students and you want them to enter the room without you, then you may need to make them all moderators, or at least, yeah, if you're not going to be in the room, you kind of have to make them all moderators so that the students can actually upload their content and record it and do the kind of things you may want them to if you're not going to be in the room as a moderator. Is this accessible also for mobile devices and tablets? It certainly is. Okay. So as far as your students accessing it, when you go to set it up, it may not have quite as many options setting it up, but there's actually a Collaborate app, so your students can certainly join you via the app. And they have like a Google's Hangout app? Yes, there certainly is. And that's all you need once you log in? Yeah, once you get in, there's a Hangout app, and yeah, that's right. It sure is, yeah. And they're working to make it more mobile friendly, but both of these are very mobile friendly. Yep. So yeah, that's exactly good question. So I'm not going to modify my settings right here. The default cameras, I think this is a default 6, which really just means inside of Collaborate, when I open the room here in a minute, there's some small camera icons that you can basically be turned on. It's not as functional visually as Hangout, but it does give you a little bit more of a personal feel, and you can turn your camera on as an instructor so that your students can see you if they so wish. So there's that part. Over into content, this is kind of what we already showed. I'm not going to preload this, but I'll show you how it can be done here in a minute. But before I can actually preload here, as far as this whiteboard file, I have to actually open a room and create what I want done and then save the room, and then I can preload it. So it's a little bit of a couple steps involved in creating this piece. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say create session. So I should have a fun room here in a minute. Perfect. So if I click on the purple icon here, so the one thing as I'm sharing my screen here, I may have to unshare and share again so you can see what's being shared, because the nature of the share is it only shares one screen here. So I believe you can see. Yeah, looks like you can. So on the bottom of the screen that pops up, I get this little thing that says keep or discard. Depending on your browser, that may just pop up. But you'll get a prompt, kind of download something called meeting.jnlp. It's a little Java piece. So Collaborate does use Java. You need to basically run that. So whether I keep it and then run it in a minute, whether I click run, again, depending on your browser you're using. It's pretty browser friendly. It should work with most browsers. I'm using Google Chrome. Yeah, and I prefer Google Chrome, frankly. Yeah. You're right. It definitely is a battle. I've had good luck with Chrome. I try to keep mine updated. I've had good luck with it. That or Firefox. I try to avoid Internet Explorer, frankly. It makes me cry a little bit. So now I've downloaded mine. On Chrome, I can just click on this, and it'll actually start it. So you may not see this yet, but you're just getting a little Java pop-up that's basically showing me that it's starting. That's the latest Java 6. Actually, this is probably the latest. Here on campus, because of ADP issues, you can't actually update your Java. So, but you should be able to use the latest Java. That'd be fine. Oh, you're just fine. So as soon as this pops up, I'll reshare my screen with y'all so you can see what's going to be shared with you. Let me unshare this, and I'll reshare real quick. So you should see something kind of like that. This will be running for a minute before the other one pops up. And you may actually, the first time you use it, you're going to get a little thing saying, asking you what speed your internet is and different things. So you just kind of have to go through that the one time. So again, let me reshare my screen one more time. So you can see the collaborate room here that we have open. So here's my fun room. So I believe, let me make sure they can see it here in the Hangout. Yeah. Okay. So here's Collaborate. This is kind of what it looks like. I think it sounded like a lot of you already kind of used it. Sorry, Lynn. Let me pause a moment and read your chat. Okay, I'll try to answer each of those questions in just a minute, Linda. That was a good question. All right. So let's just get the basic here first. Again, I think a lot of you probably already used it, but we'll kind of walk through some of the basics real quick. So when I first start, I do get this little pop-up reminder saying, do you want to record? That's because of a setting that it's actually default setting that I can turn off if I want to. I can tell it not to prompt me, or I can tell it to automatically record as soon as I come into the session. I may not be ready to record yet, so I'm going to say close to this, and I may just set my room up first, and then I can come back and click the record button. So that's an option. So on the left-hand side, we're going to start real quick over here. So notice I don't have a video here, but I can by just clicking. I have a preview button and a video button. If I click preview, I can make sure my hair is pretty, which of course it is. You know. And then once I'm happy with my hair and makeup and whatnot, then I can just click video and it'll actually turn it on so they can see it. Preview is just for me to make sure I'm in good shape. So if I click that on, then anybody in the room could see the video. It's kind of like a toggle switch. So once it's on, it's on. I don't have to hold it down or anything. And that's the same with the talk button. This talk button is really like the toggle, like a light switch. I'm going to turn on or off. You're fine. If I click on talk, it'll turn this on. You'll notice right across here my audio is moving, which means my audio is working. Or I can turn off the talk. Let me try to slide this over so I can see what y'all are chatting if you have something there. Okay. So that's the basic area of this. Sometimes you have to go through a setup to make sure your audio and video actually work. So to do that, right on top of your audio and video box, there's a little icon that has a red, I guess it looks like an asterisk if you ask me. And if I click on that, it'll allow me to kind of walk through a wizard to set this up. So I can pick my speakers, and it's hard to mess up the wizard, frankly. As long as you just do what it says, it's hard to mess it up. So you walk through that wizard, that should get your audio and video working as long as you have those options on your computer. So I'm going to cancel that. I don't need it here on this one. And then on the far end, I have a drop down. There's little 3 lines in the list. This is just actually a menu bar. So if I click on that, there's a lot of things I can do. So this is where I may set up my camera. I may I can make some different adjustments, speaker settings, microphone settings. I can also Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Linda. So you're talking about right here, the participants. You can make it larger. I can actually grab this and pop it right out. And then if I have a big enough screen, I can make this thing as large as I'd like. So I can certainly do that. I have a really big screen I'm using right now. I'm actually using a kind of a large screen television that I'm connected to. So I can certainly do that. Just put it off to the side. And I can do that with any of these icons. The chat can be that way. The video can be that way. When I'm done with that, I can actually just bring it back over here and drop it back into my window, kind of. So does that help? Does that answer that question, Linda? Yep, I can show again. If you just click right on this top bar next to any of these little, I guess you're going to call them widgets. If I just select that, I'd grab it and pull it out. So I can make that a separate window, and that doesn't even have to be part of around here. I can put it down out of the way. Okay, perfect. I'll put mine back in place. Did you catch that? Well, you're fine. So yes, you can definitely do all of that. So you can see your participants, and there's a lot of stuff I can do with my participants. So I'm not going to get into a lot of these top pieces, and I won't really go into breakout rooms unless you all want me to. But you can do stuff in here like breakout rooms, which I don't know if you all know Tom Peterson, but he utilizes that really heavily. He uses the breakout rooms for different groups and has them do different stuff in there, and he has pretty good luck with it. I know it's a little bit more of a headache trying to get it all figured out, and you're sending people to the rooms, but you can do a lot of stuff with it.
I've seen breakout rooms in Adobe Connect, but I haven't seen breakout
Let me
rooms
see.
in Meeting.
Yeah, I don't.
Or is it considered breakout rooms when each student has their own screen when you're getting discussion and letting
That's
4 or 5
probably
people come up?
that'd be probably different. I've used GoToMeeting and I've used some of the other WebEx and things. Those aren't some that we push on campus or we even have licenses for. There are a few departments on campus that I think of or kind of do some individual testing. But as far as a campus, really Collaborate or Google Hangouts are the only ones that we have.
Okay. Do you have to have licenses for Google Hangout?
No, you don't.
I thought
So
that one was free.
it is. So I can't hear you, Tick, so I'll try to restate what you said. But the question was about some of the other tools that you can do this with, WebEx, GoToMeeting, some of the ones about breakout rooms. And my answer, you've heard me, so we don't have licensing for that. We really just have Collaborate or Google Hangout. And Google Hangout, the other question was about, it's not, you don't need an extra license for it. It's part of our apps for EDU that the school's purchased. But you can also use Hangout in your regular Gmail. It's free anyway. So there's some benefits to the .edu version of Hangout. So I'm logged in currently with actually just regular Gmail because we're using an account we made just to do these sessions. And it's not a .edu account, which means I guess I never thought about it actually, which means only 10 people could join the session live online. And after that, they'd get a message saying they can watch live. Like the entire world could watch. But only 10, if you're not using EDU, can join you interactively. And they can come in and actually have a conversation. And you can see them and you can share stuff with them. But the .edu version gives us more room. So I believe at this point it's 15. So we have a few more kind of bells and whistles and perks because of what we bought into as a university. And that's the Hangout part. So, all right, the other piece, if I'll mention this because it sounds like there's some interest in the dropout. I mean, sorry, I can't even think. In the breakout rooms, there you go. So from this drop down, I can actually say create breakout rooms. So if I want to do that, this is one area to do that. So, and this can be done in several ways. Making sure y'all can see me over there. Looks like you can. So my breakout rooms allows me to give those rooms a name. I want 3 or 4 rooms. I don't have to move participants. I can move myself. I can distribute them evenly. I can divide them up into a certain number. And I can also include moderators, which would be me. I'm not one of the moderators. And if I had 3 or 4 different moderators in this group, I had a large session, several moderators, I could include those with that. Right? Or if I'd made everybody moderators, I may want to set that so that everybody gets distributed. So if I'm utilizing this that way, then I kind of need to check that. And the reasoning, again, you might make a breakout room is just for group type work. So that basically puts them in their own little space. And there's some neat stuff you can do with that. Again, I won't dive real deep in that unless y'all have a question for me related to that. But that's the idea of the breakout room. In each room? All right, let's go ahead and just make one real quick. So we are having some questions. I'm going to go ahead and just make some breakout rooms. So I'm going to say create breakout rooms, and I'm just going to make 4 rooms. So once I make my rooms here in just a second, wait for it. It's going to give me some rooms right underneath in my main room area here. It is being awful slow today. I don't know why it's taking so long. It's being a little slow today. But once my rooms are made, I can actually just drag and drop them into the room. Or again, part of the setting, I could actually have it automatically distribute those people into the different rooms. I don't have any students in this particular little room, so I don't have the option, but I think it might have froze it up on me. I don't know what I've done. Goodness. I think it's giving me more problem because I'm utilizing 2 different virtual type rooms at the same time. I have this Hangout going, and I'm trying to show a virtual room in a virtual room, so I might kind of break the internet kind of. It's like Googling Google, I think. getting a big circle. But I might have actually froze this up, which is be interesting. I've never done that before. That'll be a first for me. But I might have. Let me try to close this out and reopen it. By invitation, you possibly could. You could really just drag and drop people, and if you actually want certain people in certain rooms, you can just mouse over their icon, their user on the side here, and just click on it and drag it into the room. So that's a quick way to do it. There's also another tool that I won't get into right now. I'm still working on it as far as the best way to utilize it. I think it's called Collaborate Plan. There's a couple people on campus that are kind of testing it, and so far it seems really good. And basically you can pre-do a lot of stuff, including stuff with your breakout rooms. So, oh, if they're not there yet, the best way if they're not here. You mean not in the Collaborate at all yet? They haven't joined the session? Yeah. That's a good question. That may be the best way to do it. I'm not really certain of that, to be honest. Unless you just wait until they join the room and then add them. I know the Collaborate plan allows you to do a lot of stuff ahead of time, including a lot of that type of thing. It's a pretty slick tool, but again, I haven't played with it enough to be doing sessions on that piece yet. It appears I've entirely broken Collaborate. So let me see if I can make the thing close. 1 second. I've never broke Collaborate before, so this is a first for me. That's a neat trick. And now, go away. Come on, Collaborate. Don't mess with me. Ooh! Alright, now I really broke it. Let's try that one more time. Alright, I really have never broken Collaborate before, so I'm kind of impressed by my abilities. So I'm going to start one more time, and every time I start that Collaborate room, I do have to open that Java piece. The second time I do it, I don't get asked all the same questions, but I do still have to click on the Java piece and say run, basically. So let me come back over here and reshare one more time. Alright, we're back to the fun room here. Should have called it the fun house. Then we could have got mirrors. Alright, so it actually already made my rooms here. At least it fixed that in its crashing ability. So here's my rooms. If I click even my own user, I can click and drag me into another room. And it actually tells me, you might not see it, I get a pop at the bottom of my screen saying I've been moved to room 1. So I can do it that way. And each of these rooms, like a lot of them, have a drop down, a menu. So if I have things in this room, I can copy the whiteboard from one room to the main room. I can enter the breakout room. I can do some stuff that way. I can also rename the room or close the room. So if I mouse over a user, I don't get the same options over mine because I'm already a moderator. But if these student users, if I mouse over one of my students, each of these icons I can do different things with. This is basically the permissions your students are given in the room. So you can shut them up. You can say you can't talk or type, and so you can kind of turn off things or mute their microphone or whatever. You can do that. Again, this little icon is a menu. So if I click on that, I'm getting the question here. Let's see. Yep. Okay. Making sure I'm following your questions on the sidebar. So if I click on the menu, there's a few things I can do. Again, here I can also say send to breakout room. So this is another way to get the different users in the breakout room. I can also lower hands, do different stuff that way. So, and I haven't really talked about hands yet, but I'll show you what that means here in just a minute. So does that kind of make sense with the breakout rooms? I think some of this, I think there's some good to it, but it does require a little bit of pre-thought. It does require probably even drinking a Mountain Dew maybe before you get started. There's some technical overhead to some of it, but I think there's a lot of benefit to it. So that's the idea behind the breakout rooms. The other pieces that I didn't really talk about are right here above, just below the video, kind of above the rooms. Some of these I think are pretty useful. Some I don't know if you'd ever use, frankly, in my opinion. So they're little emoticons here. It's what they say is it's a way to kind of judge the personality in the room, to kind of see how people are feeling. I don't know if it's a very honest thing, kind of, but people can do some stuff. People kind of applaud or approve or whatever. And I've seen this used sometime. I actually am in these types of rooms a lot. I'm in meetings with the Board of Regents weekly with the entire state, and they utilize this type of stuff. Forever they used Collaborate, and they've actually moved to WebEx now. So they've been bouncing around. I don't know what they keep doing that for, but I think Collaborate's probably better than WebEx, frankly. So there's some pieces here. I can also do stuff like step away. I'm going to get up. Where I'm in this virtual place, nobody knows if I'm sitting there or not. So I can put a little icon saying I'm not. I stepped away for a second, so people don't ask me a question. So that can be useful. This other little icon is actually raising the hand. So, excuse me. If you want to, excuse me. If you want to control the room by kind of letting your students know before they talk, just pop up a hand so you can call on people. In a large room session, this makes sense to me. In small groups, it's not as big a deal. And Collaborate's gotten better with overtalk. In the past, the older systems that did this kind of thing, if more than one person talked at once, it interjected, it was echo, it was awful. So they've fixed a lot of that. There's still a little bit of that here, but it's much better than it used to be. So that's one way to control the room. You can also do stuff like with survey type thing. You can actually ask questions and get like a yes or no response. And they click yes, they'll give you a little green check. And you can do that kind of thing. So that's possibly an option too. So again, it shows me I'm in a certain room up here. So this is another option for my breakout rooms. All right. So that's that piece. Any questions on that before I bounce away? Before I move on to something else, I'll close my recording prompt here. I don't want to record. It's awful quiet on the home front.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot to know.
There's a lot going on in here.
And you won't really learn it till you're hands-on.
I totally agree. And I'm a very big advocate kind of. So when it comes to this, until you play with it, it's hard to really know it. I've had the opportunity to play with it more than I care to probably mention, but it helps a lot to get in there and do it. Yep. Yeah, and I'll show you some more of that too, just a minute. Some different options, different ways to set that up. The chat icon is pretty basic. When you click on this, if you have a bunch of different people in the room, you can. This goes to the entire room, or moderators goes to just those in charge. So that's really your only options. It also has a little lovely emoticons down here if you want to utilize them. Yep, I will. That's my next adventure is the content side of this, Linda. So that's this piece. So let's move across the top. So right now this middle box is what they call the whiteboard. So this is normally what I'm going to be using to share PowerPoints and whatnot. And on the very, very top, this little icon is my whiteboard icon. I have two other options. One's for sharing screen or desktop, which frankly I wouldn't recommend inside of Collaborate just because it tends to really clog up the system. It doesn't work real well. It takes a lot of computer resources to do it. It can be done, but you end up having some problems sometimes. The next one is sharing web pages. So there's a couple different methods there. So I'll come to these in just a minute. So with my whiteboard content, this is where my PowerPoints live. To get them there, if I come clean across the top, I'm going to click Load Content. When it says Load Content, it really should say Load PowerPoint, because that's about all it's going to take. It has a limited ability to take other files this way. It doesn't really work for PDFs or Word documents. It needs to be a PowerPoint.
So if you have a PowerPoint with a lot of maybe embedded videos or JPEGs or whatever,
Yep.
can Empatica work that makes it a smaller size file?
Let me fix that now, because frankly in here it destroys all that. What it does is it takes your PowerPoint and turns each PowerPoint into a JPEG. It turns it into an image. So if you have interactive PowerPoint, video, animations, it's not going to play in here. It's just going to turn it into an image. So that's not the best thing to utilize for this. If you want to utilize video, either need to preload the video, or you can utilize the web tour and share links to the video somewhere else. So that's how I'd recommend it. But yeah, that's a good question, but it does not keep any of the animations, video, audio. It just turns each PowerPoint slide into a picture, basically a static picture. So that's kind of a downside in my opinion. So that's one piece of that. But if I just have a regular PowerPoint, I can pull it in. It'll pull through. Google Slides as a web tour. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's not a bad option. The Google Slide piece, that's a good option. And we'll talk a little bit about that too, because that's also a good option in Google Hangouts. So I like that. All right, but this is how you load your content. Again, it has to be a PowerPoint. If I don't think I have PowerPoint on this machine, I need to get one on here so I can play with it, but I don't believe I actually have one. Let's double check. I don't think I do. Nope, I need to load one on here so I can have a sample. But a PowerPoint, I just click on it, pull it in. Once it pulled in, right here underneath load content, you have a drop-down box. So because I've created rooms, I have these extra rooms here. Otherwise, this wouldn't show up. But this is where my PowerPoints will live. And I can either click through them here, or I can use this back and forward button next to this drop-down to go through my PowerPoints. So that's kind of how I navigate the PowerPoint slides that I have uploaded. This is also important. This little follow button. I'll come right back to that, Linda. I'm not really sure what you're asking there with the LTI question. This little follow button, if I do not have this selected, notice my screen has this red thing around it. This is basically saying I'm the only person seeing my interactivity. If I'm moving something, it doesn't matter. The students aren't seeing it. If I click follow, this needs to be selected for my students to see what I see. So if I change this, the students will see what I'm changing it to. So the only point in this not follow is so you can kind of go ahead and make sure that the next slide is what you want it to be. But I kind of think this should be defaulted on. Oftentimes, for whatever reason, it seems like it's not. So just make sure that there's no big red line around your box, and that has a checkbox in it. That's important. So that'll cause you some grief if you don't. Your students will be able to see anything you're doing. You can also kind of kick this little box into its own window. If I click this little button here, is that the right one? Oops, that's not the right one. It's right here. I can say Show Page Explorer, and that'll pop up in a new box. Again, this will show me each of my slides, and I can pick them there as well. I kind of like it living up on top. For me, it's just easier to utilize. If I'm going to go ahead and close that, and it puts it right back in there. So, any thoughts on that? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Linda. I'm not sure what you mean by LTI. When you upload your PowerPoint, it really is just converting them to images. So it takes out any animations. Is that what you're asking? I'll give you a minute. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I don't believe there's any other conversion that it does as far as I'm aware of. I may be wrong. I usually don't admit it. I'm just kidding. So that's that piece. I'll read this. Change it to an LTI, print in the directions. I guess I'm not familiar with that. I have to look at it. Because normally a direct PowerPoint should actually upload. If I'm trying to preload a PowerPoint, now that's different. Is that what you mean? Yeah, if I'm preloading a PowerPoint, that's correct actually. Preloading a PowerPoint, it wants me to make it either a WBD, which is a whiteboard saved file, or so I think LTI. That makes more sense. Now I'm with you. And to do that, if I have I would just get my room set up, make this what I wanted, upload my PowerPoints, then right up here under File, I would click File, Save, and I would save my whiteboard. And what this does is it saves the .wbd file, and then I can upload that in that pre area inside of Course 10 in that content area as preloaded content. So what that would do is when I open my room, my PowerPoint's there. Because if I create this and I close my room and come back into it, it's going to come back into an empty room. But if I save my room and then upload it there, it'll come back in. Yeah, that makes more sense, Linda. Yeah, that's exactly correct. If I preload content, it does not let me use just a PowerPoint. That is exactly correct. That's why I'd have to come in here and do the old file and then save. And again, this seems to be a pretty good option. And you can save all the pages or just certain pages to do that. Yeah, for prepping ahead of time. So that's the whiteboard area. Again, I'll walk through these, but again, I don't recommend using the screen share, but I click on screen share. It allows me to not only share one particular item, so one window, and if I was going to screen share, frankly, I would try to do that. If I do an entire desktop share, it seems to take more resources and tends to just clog the system up. That oftentimes will make it so slow for the students. Usually what happens on the student side is their screen just slowly loads down. So it's just not as functional in my opinion. I don't necessarily like the screen share built into Collaborate. If you have to use it, it's an option. But it's a little slow. Just be prepared for that. Again, I think the bottom options are probably better. If I do a screen share here, let's see if I do a Chrome share here. See if it breaks everything. Now sharing. So it kind of bounces off my whole thing saying you're sharing because it tries to show me my window and it hides the fact that my Collaborate room is even running because I'm sharing my screen. That's why it did all that. What had just happened, it popped everything out, and I probably lost my window. So you kind of lost my screen share with you. So let me kill the screen share in Blackboard real quick and Collaborate. Um, come back, Collaborate room. There we go. Yeah, so sharing the screen again in Collaborate's a little tricky. Let me come back and reshare that with you. But it kind of breaks things. Oops. Yeah, I just created a matrix. Wrong window. All right, there we go. All right, so that's the screen share option. Again, I think there's some issue with it. I don't usually do it if I can avoid it. I like doing that in Hangouts much better. It works a lot better than it does in Collaborate. The next option is sharing a web link or a web URL.
So with the screen share, you can share documents. So if a student has a document that you want to upload or download,
you can,
or give them a document.
You can, but frankly, if it was me, I'd utilize Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
So if it was me, I'd use Google Drive and then share the link. Does that make sense?
Yeah, upload it to Google Drive.
Upload it to Google Drive. Yeah, or even in the Google Drive, then I could utilize the web link. So if I put something here, like I'll actually open a Google Drive doc because I'd like to show you what that looks like. Let's see if we can do that real quick. So I'm just going to grab a Google Drive URL real quick. That's what I'm doing. I know you can't see me, y'all online, but that's what I'm going to do real quick so that we have an image that we can share. I mean, a link that we can share inside of a Collaborate room. I think this is doing too many things at once. My computer's getting to yell at me. Okay. So let's just go with we'll go with just a presentation, but it should be the same way whether I'm sharing a Google presentation, a Google Doc. All of those things should be able to be shared via URL. As long as when you share them in Google Drive, come on now. When you share them in Google Drive, you make sure that anybody who has a link can see them. That's probably the easiest way. Right now, this particular one is private. And if I grab this and share it over here, it probably won't even pull in. Well, it actually might because I'm also logged into that Hangout. But I'm going to change this to say anyone with a link and save it. So let me come back to my Collaborate room. So inside of Collaborate, this is what you're all seeing. I'm going to go ahead and share a link. So on the very top here, I'm going to paste my Google Drive link to a presentation. And notice it says follow me here. That's also important. I'm just going to hit enter. So this is going to pull in this window. See if it'll actually work for me. Sometimes some of the Google Drive things don't like to play inside of a box, if you will, and this is kind of considered a box. But let's see if it'll work. Yeah, it looks like it's going to. I think our internet on campus is just being a little fighting us today. So give this just a second to load. But this is a presentation, so it's going to load like a presentation. So instead of me loading content up here via load content, I'm just loading a presentation in the web URL. And if I click through this, it plays like a PowerPoint. Okay, and I don't think I have any
So
interactive. This is in
you
Google
can
Drive.
play it just like a regular
That's right.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Now Microsoft does that too. when you do the view
The
online.
live stuff. I haven't played as much with that. When they first came out, I wasn't impressed. They were a little slow with it.
Yeah,
I think Drive does better, but I haven't played with
I think
Microsoft for a little
Drive does
while.
better too. And anytime I open up documents in there, it's just much more friendly. I have too many problems with Microsoft.
Yeah.
I saw the same thing.
Yep. The question was about Microsoft being able to do the same thing. They have something called Microsoft Live that does something similar to Google Drive. I really like Google Drive better, but anyway. So this is another option to share um, content. I frankly like this quite a bit better, but that's just me.
Wow,
Um,
that is
it
awesome.
seems to me a little smoother.
That was just the original PowerPoint that you
This probably
uploaded.
was a PowerPoint, but when it was uploaded, it was converted to a Google presentation. So it needs to be
Oh, so
converted to
Google,
the Google.
when you do Google Docs, it'll convert it to
If
its own.
yeah, it has an option to it, not necessarily by default, but it has an option to. So that's one option. So if for whatever reason I wanted just to share a document with them, wanted to open on their machine, this other little drop down up here next to the URL, if I click that, I can publish the link right down here to the chat bar, or I can also click open URL in browser, which means it'll open their default browser with that link in it. So if that's a video I want to share or whatever, I can actually open it for them on their machine and it'll start to play if it's a video or whatever I'm sharing. So that's some options as far as this. I kind of like the web options better than like screen share, because normally what I'm sharing would be something I could utilize Drive for. So so that's one option. And I believe if I had some interactivity in here, it'd probably still work because I'm using this as a web page. It's not the same thing as a PowerPoint. So it should work a lot better. So any thoughts, questions on that before we, or just in Collaborate in general? You're awful quiet, Victoria. Even on text, you're awful quiet. Linda's out typing you.
It can't. You can't give them volume where you can hear them.
Oh, their mics actually. Both of them don't have a mic. They're having fighting. Well, she's on a Mac, but it's not working correctly. So we're fighting their mics. Let's see. My students created their presentation in Google Slides and their videos open during the presentation. Oh, perfect. So that actually worked with the videos. Was that a pretty positive experience? It worked well? Perfect. That's good to know, actually. That's very good to know. So I really like the Google Slide option. That works, Victoria, no problem. I'll allow the quiet one in the background as long as as long as you're still there. But yeah, I like Google Slides. So anyway, so that's another option. So I think that kind of covers what we want to talk about inside of Collaborate. Unless y'all have another Collaborate question, I'll talk about Google Hangouts. Linda looks like she's typing furiously, so I'm going to give her a minute. How about just have a document from Google Docs? And I believe that'll actually be the same thing. So distribution of a document, you mean you want them to download it or you want them to utilize it? If you want them to download it, I'll actually grab a Google Doc and do the same thing with it. So it doesn't have a built-in thing as far as utilize Drive inside of Collaborate, but it does have the option to share a web link, so I can do it that way. So if I come back to my Drive, I won't reshare my screen. I'll just see if I have a regular doc here. I believe I do. So one of the benefits of the Google Doc, if I had a lot of students and I wanted them to actually work in this document, I believe I could probably do that there too. I'll have to play a little bit with that, but I believe if I shared my document correctly, I could actually let people access it. They may have to access it outside of Collaborate. I'll have to play with that. That's a really good question, Linda. I think I could actually share a document right inside of Collaborate that would allow people to edit it inside of Collaborate. I've never played with that thought, but I really like it. Because I just grabbed the URL here, so I'm going to come back into my Collaborate room,
Linda Godsey.
and I'm going to share a different room here. So this is a Google Doc,
Very well,
and
thank
I'm
you.
certain I can do that inside of there because I'm able to edit it myself.
Yes.
Oh, I really like that idea. That's interesting. So
How far
I
are you from
I've never
Etowah
done that before,
County?
Linda, and I really appreciate you saying that because um, I just never thought about it.
I live
But
in
what I've
Gadsden
done, I've
proper.
created a Google Doc from a previous session in Hangout. It just has a bunch of us kind of talking. I was showing them how it worked. And I've made it so anybody with the link can edit the file. And then I shared that link inside my Collaborate
I'm
room,
looking more for
which really
part-time.
means anybody in here can type or work inside of this. Now,
Okay.
if I wanted to be more kind of
That sounds
controlling of that
interesting.
document, I could say,
Would you like
because of
me
our
to?
.edu
I'm
accounts,
right
I could
now. I'm
actually
in the
say anybody
middle
with a
of a
.edu account, anybody working at
presentation
UWG,
on
not .edu account, anybody working at
Google
UWG can edit,
Collaborate.
which means the student would have to be logged in, which means I know who's
Well,
editing
I'm
the
teaching
files.
online
Right
part-time for the
now,
University of
you don't
West
have to sign
Georgia,
in.
and
Those
we
of you
were
have to sign
reviewing
in
Google
because I'm actually not even signed in here. I'm showing them
Collaborate, which is
anonymous.
where you're on
Right.
video.
So
So I'm on
even
the video,
Hangout,
but they
the
can't hear
driver's
me
kind
because
of saying this is a weird browser because I'm really using
my
really the
mic's not
browser I'm
working for
using.
some
Collaborate as a
reason, and
browser.
David and I couldn't figure out what
And I
was
really
wrong.
like that a lot. And this should allow
Tell
me to
me
actually
where
not only
you are
share the
again,
file, but
Cleburne.
collaborate on the file. And if the student wanted to download the
Yes,
file,
yes,
um,
yes, yes.
I don't know if I can get rid of that little bar there or not. Let's see. It may not even let me take that away. Let's see if it'll let me. I don't know if it will. It doesn't appear it lets me get rid of that bar out of the way, which might cause me some grief. As far as
Okay.
them downloading the file, if that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
asking about, Linda. Is that what you meant? Do you want them to download the file? Well, I think your mic might be working, Linda, but maybe I'm not hearing
Okay.
you. Try talking again for me, Linda. Oh, that's hilarious. Sorry, Victoria. I thought I had mine set up so I didn't hear her at all. Maybe I had it set up to go through the speakers and they're turned off. Who knows? Hey, that's why it's so quiet here. It might not have been Linda this whole time. That's hilarious. Would you mind actually seeing if that speaker's on right there? We're gonna test our speakers.
Right.
That's really
Okay.
funny. Yeah. No, not that one. The speaker behind the TV.
Oh,
Is that looks like it's even on? It
how do you tell
should have a light on it. I'm checking my speaker real quick.
this here?
Oh, never mind. I got it right here. It should be on.
What's this?
That's just a connector. That's a USB.
Oh,
But that's the strangest thing. All right.
it's on. I hear a little vibration.
Okay. Yeah, I might be having some issue on my side with my speakers, so
I hear something.
it's all right. I'll do this so I can hear anyway. All right. Yeah, I think I've been having a problem with it sometime with my own speakers, not your mic, Linda. I think she stepped out to use the phone. I'm just gonna use my headset for a minute so I can hear you because it's actually an issue on my end. But I really like what Linda mentioned here. I think this is a really good option as far as a way to do some collaboration inside of a Blackboard Collaborate room. And it's not something I've done before, so I like the idea a lot. Anyway, so that's an option. So you can share any URL here. And again, the follow me piece, this works for most URLs. However, it would not work if I'm using something like some web pages utilize like PHP or different coding that the web link doesn't change when things inside change. So it may not always work under follow me, but I often should be able to open a web page and then actually go through the links and the students will see what I see. So that should be how that works. Thank you for pointing that out, Victoria. I've been sitting here the whole time thinking that both of your mics, and it was actually my speakers that was not working correctly. I'll have to do some checking on my end. We utilize this room pretty heavily. Somebody must have messed with them. Unplugged something somewhere. But anyway. All right, any other questions about this? I think Linda's still out of the room, so. You have anything for me, Victoria? Or do you have anything? Is it Julia or Julie?
Either one's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine. Yeah, I like it. I like that. It's a nice program. I'm gonna definitely get into that. The whole presentation.
Yeah.
I like that better than GoToMeeting.
Yeah, I do too. And again, the big benefit of this really is that you can have a lot of people in it. So I've been in rooms with a pile of people, with 100 people. So there's not really a limit on, minimize this, on how many people can be in your room, where the Google Hangout does have that limit. There's some limitations there. If I do use the .edu, it's 15.
15.
Well, 15 different computers anyway. So there could be 10, 100 people in a room, but only 15 computers.
So they just need to sign into Google Hangout, or do we need to send them the link to join?
I'll walk through that next. So I'm going to go ahead and close Collaborate. So I'm glad we looked at this, and I know Linda stepped away, but that was a good question. I've never actually tried to do that before. And I like the idea a lot. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it. I'm pretty big on Google. I push it all the time. I've done presentations across the United States actually on Google and how to use it, and I've never realized I could do this in Collaborate before. So there you go. Learn something new every day. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close Collaborate down, and which will probably unshare my screen because that's the nature of how Hangouts work here. So ta-da, I'm back. All right. So now let's actually talk about what we're using, these Google Hangouts. So this will be a little trickier to talk about because we're inside of a Hangout. But what I want to do is just show you some different options on how to create them. So what I will share my screen with you one more time, just my regular Chrome window, and I'll show you some different methods of different methods of how to use and how to create these Hangout rooms. I keep sharing the wrong room. That's not what I meant to do.
So
Sorry.
how did you get into Google Hangout? Did you just log in?
That's what I'm going to show you right now. That's where we're going. No, you're good. You're fine. You're perfectly fine. So let me close out these other tabs I got open here. So a Google Hangout, first let's explain kind of what's involved and what's available. So Google Hangout has two different options. One is just a regular Google Hangout. It's often used family just hanging out. It's more casual conversation probably. It may be used for your virtual classroom. There's no recording option for that, for the regular Hangout, but there's a lot of other options. So if you mouse over the Hangout that we're in, if your mouse isn't over it, you don't see the little sidebars. If you put your mouse up over the picture in the middle, you'll see some side icons pop out. And there's a lot of what they kind of call add-ins. I believe they're add-ins, or apps, basically, that I can add or utilize inside of a Hangout. So one of those, again, is Screen Share, which we're using. The chat, there's a question and answer option. Because I'm using this Hangout on Air, there's a couple other options that I see, the cameraman and a couple other pieces. I don't think you all saw all this, but when we first started this, before I really got started, I thought Linda was having an issue with her mic, and I realized that now it's my speaker. But there's one option called Remote Desktop, and I can actually request to take over one of the participants' computers and help them with something. So that's really, really handy. That's in Google Hangouts. So right here at Hangout, if I click Remote Desktop, I know you all don't see this on your end, but it's actually a little window saying Remote Desktop, and it asks me who I want to help. So I can actually choose one of the participants in our room that we're in, and they can. I can then go in and take over their computer for them and help them get something set up, or show them something directly. So there's some neat pieces there. So let's kind of talk about how you create it and some different methods of doing so. So if you are signed into your .edu account, that's what I'd recommend for your stuff here on campus. Across the top of pretty much all the Google pages, you got a little bar up here. And one of these little icons looks like the old Rubik's Cube, if you will. If I click on that, it'll show you all my apps. And one of my apps is Google+. I can also click this plus David, or it may say plus you if you haven't used it before. But I'm going to go ahead and say, click on the plus David here. And that's going to open my Google+. Again, it's trying to get me to have more friends. I thought I had enough friends, but Google really wants you to have friends. But I'm going to say it's okay. I'm going to click to continue. Avoid. I don't need any more friends right now. And now I'm in Google Plus itself. So Google Plus, if you don't know, Google Plus is kind of like a Facebook type environment. It's basically a social media type environment that I can do some sharing. I have a main kind of a home page. I won't really get into Google Plus, but it to me has a lot of benefits for education, especially because it's much more controlled on who I share with, how I share, and what I share. It's not as easy to kind of open face as Facebook is. And I can do a lot more with it. Plus, it ties into all the other Google applications that are out there. So what we're using here in this meeting is the Hangout on Air. So Hangout on Air, if I click Home or mouse over Home and then click on Hangouts, you're going to see some different options. So I'm on the home side of Hangouts. I have Hangouts on Air and Video Hangouts. So what I did to create this room is right 10 minutes or so before the meeting started, I came down here and clicked on Start Hangout on Air, and I set it up. So this pops up a new window, allowing me to give it a name, create it. Yes, kind of. On Air, Google on Air basically means this is a live session. Like right now, although I don't have anybody watching us, welcome back, Linda. I have to apologize. I have no idea what I did, but this whole time it's been my speakers not working, not your microphone. So, thanks to Victoria for pointing that out. You probably have all your conversation was right there, but yeah, I'm like, wow, okay, it's been one of those days. But so we're getting into Google Hangouts now. So Hangout on.
Before you go, I need to know how you got there. I had to go out and take a phone call.
No problem. So I can back up a little bit. It's no problem. I think I fouled this room up bad enough by completely not realizing that you're talking the whole time because my computer, because my speakers. Yes, yeah, I'm gonna call it a Monday. I know it's not necessarily a Monday.
Well, I'm glad because I had no other idea of what to do with my microphone.
That's funny. Yeah, it was all me this time. I have to totally take that one.
Oh, good. Now that gives me 10 free calls to tech support, doesn't it?
I think it does. It does. You get like a freebie out of that one. So to get to Hangouts, what I did, across the top of any Google page, pretty much, you're going to get kind of your bar. One will be your little icon over here in the corner if you're logged in, or you have a sign-in option.
Right.
I'm using my .edu account, which I recommend. It gives you some better options. And this little icon, it looks like a Rubik's Cube. That's where the other apps are located, Google Drive, Calendar, and as well as Google Plus, which is also this, you might say plus you or plus your name here. So if you haven't used it yet. So to get where I'm at here, I clicked on Google Plus, and I moused over what was home and clicked on Hangouts.
Okay.
All right. So once you're in Hangouts, then you have these options. So under Hangouts, I have a home area of Hangouts, Hangouts on Air, and Video Hangouts. So what I mentioned when you were out of the room, I believe, was there's two different kinds of Hangouts. One is the Hangout on Air, that's what we are using, so you can record it, and one is a regular, just a Hangout that's not recorded. It's pretty much the same thing without being recorded, and you don't have quite the control over it. Okay. Hangouts on Air, because it's being streamed live to your YouTube channel, it's broadcasted live, you get more control. It's kind of your room. If you create it, you can kick people out, you can shut people up, you can control the environment more.
So which one do you recommend?
Depending on what you're doing, frankly. So if you're doing it for inside of a class and you want to record it, if I'm not recording it, then I probably wouldn't use Hangout on Air.
Okay.
If I don't want it archived.
Right. I don't want mine archived.
Then I wouldn't use Hangout on Air because there's a couple levels of things to go through to make this work correctly.
Okay. Thank you.
The way I do ours on Hangout on Air with what we're in now is I normally will set up the calendar basically event saying we're going to have a meeting on whatever time. And then right before, 10 minutes or so before the meeting starts, I'll come in and create my Hangout on Air. To do that, I come in this area, I come right down here and click Start Hangout on Air. I click on that, and I give it a name. I can say Start Now, because I'm going to start it in 10 minutes. And then this is kind of new, this audience option, I really, really, really like. So when they first started this, the audience was default public and you couldn't change it. And in education, due to just the nature of what we do in higher ed, that was often frowned upon. People didn't want it public by default. I can fix that now. So now I can come in and modify my audience. I don't want it public. I can click public. I don't want it public. This is the UWG. I can actually say only people at UWG can find this and view it as an audience. Or I could be specific and say only these people who are in my class can see this later.
Okay.
Okay. you may want to use this for other reason. So I found this can also be utilized to record and basically narrate a PowerPoint or narrate a Google presentation by using this. So I actually have a whole slideshow about how to do that. And if I want to do that, there's no reason to share with the audience at all. However, the audience can't be blank. So if I'm doing something like that, I just share with myself. I just put in my own email address and talk to myself. I'm good at that. Obviously, I've been doing it all morning. So that's an option. I can just put in my email address, and then I can record it and do what I want to. So that means my audience is empty, but I can record my session, come back later in YouTube, and then share it when I'm done. So it's not being streamed live, and well, even if it is, nobody can see it because you have to be me, basically.
Okay.
So that's an option.
Okay.
So I'm going to actually, when we make ours, I usually just put it public. All of our archives for our sessions we do here are just publicly facing. It doesn't matter to me if someone in Guam wants to watch them, more power to them. I just feel happy someone's watching them. So, and they're probably going, she's talking, he can't hear her. But for this one, I'll share with myself because I don't want to. So I'm just going to type my own email address here. So I'm sharing with myself. And then once I basically create really what I'm doing here, I'm not even creating the Hangout, I'm creating the event for the Hangout. So if that makes sense, I'm making the space available, but I'm not really starting it yet. So once I give it a name, don't watch me, and I'm going to say share, which again, I'm only sharing with myself here because I'm just sharing, So, and then that's creating this space for me to use it. And then if I come down, once it's created, I'll see this Google Plus. If I click play, it's just going to say nothing's going on here yet because I haven't started it. It's my meeting. And if someone else was to see it who I'm sharing with, this is what they will get until I actually broadcast. And once you open a Hangout on air, you'll get an option to start a broadcast just a few minutes after you open it. And that once it's broadcasting, you'll actually see on the bottom of it, I mean, you'll be able to tell who can see your room, all that kind of stuff. So when I'm ready to actually open it, I just click Start. So I already have a Hangout open on this computer, so I can't really have two. But once I'm ready to open one, I just click Start. It opens up the Hangout. And then I can either invite individual people, which frankly is not the best method in my opinion. It's harder for people to get that invite. What I found to work best is click Start. And then when the Hangout opens, notice on the Hangout we're in, on the very top you see a URL. If I take that URL and I just email it to my class or email it to the listserv, which I do for this, if you click on that link, it takes you right into this Hangout. So that's the easiest way to get people into your room.
That's the easiest way that's what I did for the rooms in my course this semester. Is I sent them and that's what I was calling an invitation.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what it is. And the other option kind of I have, it's a little tricky to share this. I'm going to try to share a weird screen share if it'll let me. It might do a weird matrix. I'm going to see if it'll let me share this screen. Because I'm sharing, it probably won't let me. Actually, I think I'll do it this way. I'm going to mute my video for a minute because I think it'll help this not look like a random matrix. We'll try it. We'll live on the edge. Nope, it's still going to be really weird. Yeah, that just doesn't work. But we'll look at the very first one, the big one, just for a second. So just for a second, we'll look at the very first one. So on the bottom, do you see 0 viewers? You see that?
Yes.
So right there, if I had people watching this live, I could tell they're watching this live.
Right.
I could also click on links down here. And from that, oops, click on the button, not that. I'll actually be able to grab the event page, which I could share ahead of time. I can grab the YouTube embed so they can actually just go to my YouTube page. The video embed I haven't really used. I suppose I could pre-embed this into, say, my classroom. I don't know if that's something I'd utilize. But I normally do is go to the very top of my screen and grab the URL. So I'm going to unshare this because I feel like I'm going to fall into a hole and never get out of. But
Alice, where are you going?
I know, exactly. So I'll unshare that. Wow, that's, whew. But there's some options there. So that's one method of creating that kind of a room, right? So how we did it here. Again, there's several ways to, like my old boss would say, there's several ways to kill a cat. Only one way to do it and keep it alive, but he didn't like cats very much. So one of the other options, let me reshare my screen with you all one more time. I'll share a screen that doesn't put us in a matrix though. And what screen is that? This one. So inside of CourseDen, let me go back to my sandbox page, the front page. So what I've done here, this virtual room link, when you create a Hangout, or if you utilize chat in Google, chats have kind of been converted to Hangout, or what they call, I think they're just calling it a video, what do they call it now? If you go into your Gmail, I have my chat on the other side here, but I think it's just called a video call now. I believe it is, Judy. Yeah, it'll actually say start a video call. It's the same thing, it's just a Hangout. So that's one option, start an individual call, but if I'm trying to start a bigger issue, I want to give a link to my students. What I like to do, frankly, is actually open my calendar icon. Go to my calendar in Google. So I got kind of a trick for this, okay? Let me get rid of all the other calendars on my thing so it's not quite so overwhelming. So if I wanted to create a, say, virtual classroom that I'm going to use for office hours, the way I do this in Hangouts is I go to the very last day of the semester. So it's just, I'll go in a little bit and just pick a date for fun. Some Saturday. I don't really care what date it is because frankly I'm not worried about this event as long as it's after the semester closes. Okay? I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say edit event so I can get to all of the details of the event. So inside of this event, I'll just say virtual room or office hours or whatever. Matter except for me because I'm not necessarily sharing my calendar event. I'm doing this for a different reason. So once I create this room, I'm going to click on add video call. So once I've done that, this is now a link that says join meeting. And this link is what I would call a static link, which means every time I click that link, it goes to the same place. And if I create a room like this at the end of my semester, I basically have just created a room that I can reuse. So does that make sense?
Not to me.
Not yet? Okay, well, hopefully in a minute.
You lost me on that too.
Okay.
In other words, Google has the option where you can create a room and embed that video link, is what you're saying.
Kind of. I'll show you. So what she asked is she's kind of lost as well. So how this works. So again, from the calendar, the idea behind this is from the calendar tool, you can create a room that, or you can create a meeting in your calendar that's not face-to-face, but you're creating a virtual meeting. Maybe you set up a meeting with someone in another state, but you're going to use Hangouts to meet. So you share the calendar event, you both click on it, you go to the same meeting room like we are now, and you talk face-to-face, basically, virtually face-to-face. Does that part make sense? Let me know when I lose you.
How do they get it, though?
So if, say on campus, let's say that you and I wanted to meet and you're at your house and I'm here, but we're going to set it up ahead of time. When I'm setting up my calendar event, I could also come right over here and I could actually just invite you to this event.
Okay,
right?
Now I understand.
So if I invited you, you'd get something in your thing saying you've been invited to this event. And then at that time of the event, we both click on the event and there'll be a link to that room.
Will it be on my
It'd
Google
be right
calendar?
in your Google Calendar.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm using this differently. I'm kind of hacking the system a little bit. So I'm not really using it for this event. I don't really need to invite you here. So I'm going to click that. What I'm using is I'm just using it for this creation of a room that I can reuse. So I'll show you how I mean by that. So once I create my room at the end of the semester, kind of in my calendar, I'm going to right-click on top of this video call, on top of join meeting, and I want to save my link. I want to copy the link address. So I just want the URL. So I'm going to copy that link, so where that goes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to copy that. And then that's all I really need here. I don't have to have a description. I'm not using this event. I just need it for that one little thing. But I got to save it. So it's just going to live there, and I can hide it and make it private or whatever I want to. So I'm going to save this. So now I've created that little room. Now I have in my I'm holding on virtually here on my right click is that URL to that room. Okay. So now inside of CourseDen, so what I've done here, I'm actually just going to redo this. I'm going to X that one out, and I'm going to say new news item. I'm going to click this. I'm going to make a new news item. And here I'm going to say office hours. Oops. And then down here I'll put probably some kind of content saying I will be available via Google Hangout during this time frame, right? Click the following link. Make sure you're logged into your .edu account, blah, blah, blah. Give them a little bit of instruction so they understand what you're using. I can type sometimes. Not today, obviously. And then after I create kind of whatever wording I want to utilize, I'm just going to embed that link. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to mouse with this quick link icon. It looks like a chain link. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say URL. And I'm going to paste. I'm going to get rid of that piece first of all, so it's empty. And I'm going to paste. So this is my link that I just copied from my calendar. And then down here in the title, I'll put virtual office. And I'll do this just for fun. Hangout. And I'm going to tell it a new window. I don't really want to open inside of here. I'm going to make sure it goes into a new window. So I'm going to click new window, and then I'm going to say insert. So here's my link that the students are going to see. Okay, and I may want more wording here. I'm just kind of being brief with my text. So once I have this, if you want to get fancy, you can even upload an image and you go to Google and get the icon for Google Hangouts and upload an image. You can get all fancy if you want to. Picture of yourself, whatever. Whatever makes you happy. So once I have this, I'm going to say save, or publish down here, not save. And then if I go back to my course homepage, my new office hour thing, so if I click on virtual office, I get a new hangout that pops up, and it looks like I'm already in Hangout. So first it's going to yell at me. It's like, you're already here. You're ready to join, and I can't actually join because I'm in one here already. But so everybody that clicks that link comes to the same place. So if I'm going to utilize this technology, this idea, then as long as I'm paying attention to my own office hours, and during those office hours, I just open up the Hangout, sit it off to the side of my browser kind of. I can be doing something else, ideally with two monitors, which I love. If you have it open on one monitor, you can be multitasking if in case nobody pops in, or when they do, it's obvious. Just turn your speakers up, make sure they're actually working. And then when they pop in, you can interact with them.
I'm so glad you did that, David.
I can't believe I did that. I thought it's awful quiet. It was just dead quiet. Well, I'm glad I was able to help you out with that. I thought, what have I done?
Thank you, Victoria, for letting me know.
Yeah, I'm letting me know too. Oh goodness. Yeah, she's like, I don't know what's going on here. That's funny. So that's an option. I think it's a great option. I really like that. It's kind of a trick to get around it, but I like it a lot, and it seems to work well to give them a, kind of that virtual room. So that's one method of creating that. That's probably the best method I would think right now that I found for adding a link to your class. If you want to make a link for your classroom, that's how I would do it. Even if I'm not putting it here, if I'm putting it inside of a module or putting it where else, it's just a URL. So I can put that anywhere I put that link. And then my students can access it as long as they understand when it is. So you're just setting up ahead of time with them, kind of a different method. We'll be meeting at this time. The room's kind of always there. It's kind of like a classroom here on campus. You can walk in the classroom anytime, but there might not be people there. So this is kind of what we're doing here, is we're creating this room that exists all the time. So then you're outside of there, you're letting them know when you'll be there.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I'd set that up. So now let's talk a little bit about more what you can do inside of a Hangout. Again, this is the tricky part because we're inside of a Hangout, talking about what to do inside of a Hangout, but that's okay. So we've already talked about a few of these. if you mouse over your kind of screen with me, this will be kind of a do as I say, follow along kind of, Simon Says. If you mouse over your screen, again, you get the icons on the left-hand side. And I probably have a few more on mine than you have on yours because I've added apps to my account. Um, there are lots and lots of apps. The ones I use most are Screen Share, Chat, Google Drive, and probably Remote Desktop I use quite a bit. And if I'm using Hangout on Air, I actually use one called the Hangout Toolbox. So if you notice when I unshare my screen here, I'll unshare just for a minute. When I unshare my screen, you'll notice that I have this lovely little icon on the bottom stating who I am with my title, or I guess my department. This is all something you can customize. I can put whatever little logo I want. I can customize this and just make it. So if I'm doing this for prosperity and want to record it for later, and you want your kind of name to be part of that recording, you can do that with that Hangout toolbox. So if you don't have it on yours yet, you don't see it. On the bottom of the list of those little icons, there's 3 little lines. A mouse over that, you may have some more there, and you also have a little button that says a little plus button that says Add Apps. You see that?
Not yet.
Let me know if I've lost you. I can happily slow down.
Well, I have this list along the edge. The
Uh-huh.
first one says recommended app Draw,
Yep.
and then Chat, and then Screen Share,
Yep.
then oh, you're talking about at the whole end of the line, the 3 little
Yep. The
buttons.
3 little buttons, and then there's a whole bunch of those. That again, this was not necessarily made for business. It's made for several different uses. Like the Draw app, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she'll get on Hangouts with me if I'm out of town or whatnot, and she loves this Draw app because you can basically use it to draw on each other, and it'll follow you around. It's more for fun than educational, but it's a good time. My daughter loves it anyway. Um, so some of these icons, different apps you may not utilize for your class. You might use them later for family conversations or just to entertain yourself, but there's a bunch of different options. But if you click the little 3 lines or mouse over it, you may see, like I have Google Drive, YouTube, Google Effects, then Add Apps. If you click Add Apps, you're going to get a big list of different applications that you can add. Again, a lot of these are not necessarily for educational use, but the tool has a lot of other uses. So, I mean, if you're out of town and have that story before bedtime thing, is kind of cool. If you have a small one at home, that's kind of a cool tool. I like it. I didn't get into this until my kids are old enough that didn't really work out, but there's a lot of neat pieces. Yes, something like this. These are all internal to this, so I've not ever seen any issues like that. So this is basically just adding the app to your Hangout piece, and it doesn't. I've never seen. Yeah, these are Hangouts internal to your or apps internal to your Hangouts. Yep. So there's a bunch here. So the other one that I use, I mentioned Google Drive, but that's one I use heavily. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So those of you who don't know Google Drive, or if you do, Google Drive, I know Linda uses it because she was mentioning it already. It allows you to do a lot of neat stuff, a lot of collaboration. And I think you might have walked out of the room earlier, Linda, when you were asked about sharing a document in Collaborate. I've never tried this before until you said that. I'm glad you mentioned it, because if you actually take a Google document and either share it with everybody that's going to be in your room at the time, or if you make the link basically so anybody with the link can edit it, and I share it in my Collaborate room, I do believe my entire room could edit that document at the same time.
I think so, because I could do that with slides, but I was not having any luck doing it with Google Docs. I don't know if it was because I wasn't using the web tour and I was trying to use it on load content.
Oh,
Maybe
possibly.
that was the reason.
Well, if you do it on a web tour and do it, as long as you have it shared correctly, they should be able to edit it.
Well, I'm trying to make certain that because our objectives say we're going to learn to collaborate, I'm
Yeah,
trying to create things where you have to collaborate,
I
and
love it.
I am meeting a lot of resistance.
I understand that too. Well, it's a different way of thinking, so it's just kind of how it is. It's gonna have to fighting through the peanut butter, if you will, for a little while because people aren't used to that. So it's a different method of thinking.
Well, are other people not using those tools for their collaboration? If I tell you that you're in a group of 5 and
Uh-huh.
the 5 of you are to work on this together, the way
I,
I've done it has been to serve as the owner of the document
yep,
and then send it to those people who are in the group
yep.
and
I
told them
think
to do it there, but what they're doing is they're, I don't know, calling them on the phone or something. They create it in Word and then they upload it, and I have no way of knowing who did what.
yeah. I think you're probably right with that battle because this is kind of new, and even for our students, this is kind of new. I think it's something that we still need to kind of polish out the bugs of that as far as the best process to get your students to understand how to utilize it. But I think you're going about it the right way. There probably is going to be some different ways that as we as an institution grow, we can start getting our students to utilize this better and require, like, if you're going to do this, this has to be created here. Like, you use this document I created, so that I
Well,
know,
that's what I told
even
them,
if
but
they
of course,
copy and paste it, because you'll know who copied and pasted it. So even if they wrote in Word and pasted their piece in, you still know who pasted it in.
well, unfortunately, they would create a new one. And I said, well, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make me the owner, or I will not grade it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good
Because
idea.
if I'm not the owner, I can't do the things in there that I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been this semester, I tried using it in spring,
Uh-huh.
and I was shocked when I found out that they didn't know what
Still
they were
not hearing you.
doing.
I'm sorry. Can you hear? Okay.
And then in summer, I started the semester by doing a whole, before the semester started, 4 documents and shared it with them. And I didn't know that people didn't know how to use it. I really didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's still some learning curve to it. I think we're getting closer, and more people are starting to utilize it, and more professors are starting to utilize it. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's still kind of a green tool, if you will, as far as green around the edges, not green as in for the environment.
Well,
It's
if
still
you
kind of
have somebody who's using it more than I am, I'd love to know who they are to see if they have better solutions than I have.
okay.
Um,
I'll try to keep I'll have to make some conversation here and see if there's other people that are utilizing it. Maybe we can create a group or something that can get together that does that kind of thing, that are willing to share kind of.
I'd
I
appreciate it.
have a Google group that I created. It's been a couple of years ago at an educational conference about people who used Google Apps for education.
Right.
So I don't know why I didn't have a lot of stuff in there, but I have a lot of people that are all trying to join the group. It wasn't an open group. It was a request to join type group.
Hmm.
But I may just open it up publicly and start trying to push it out there because I think there's a lot of people interested in how to use this better inside of education environments and how to get students to use them better. So
Well, as I've talked to a couple of the folks in the department, they've said that they're not using it like that, but they'd like to know more about it. So I told them if they wanted, I'd be glad to come over or share it virtually and show them how I had set it up and see if it makes sense. It made sense to me, but now it may not make sense to anybody else.
well, I'd love to see what you're doing as well. That'd be interesting to so. But in another time we'll talk
Right,
more.
right.
But so
I'm going to have to leave now.
well, we completely went over what I thought we'd do anyway, so we're good.
Oh, but before I leave, I need to know how to log in or get to uh, Blackboard Collaborate from my iPhone.
From your iPhone, you actually download an app called Collaborate. So from your iPhone or iPad, there is an app just for that. So if you're creating a room, it's not as good. So some of the downsides of the apps, including the Hangout app, if if you do sharing and screen sharing, some of those don't work as well on the app as they do on a computer. Especially with, I believe with Hangout, if I do a screen share or that kind of stuff, you won't see it on the app. It works good for the video conversation and that type thing, but not for some of the
Is
other.
it called Blackboard Collaborate Mobile? Is that it?
That's it, yes.
Or is it Blackboard Connect for iPhone? Which one?
It's Collaborate Mobile.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly correct.
Okay. Then I can probably figure out where to get to, what else to do next.
Okay. I so apologize for having my thing so found out for you guys.
I told you, I'm so glad it gives me 10 freebies, so I'm not going to worry about it.
So I probably won't keep this recording because it's probably just got a lot of both of us talking because you didn't realize that you're being recorded.
Okie doke. Thank you. I'm going to log out.
All right, thank you. I'm probably going to call this a day too, but Victoria, and both of you, if you have any questions for later, please let me know. Or if you have anything right now, Victoria, you'd like me to cover before I call it, please let me know that too. I know I've been rambling way past our assigned time, so. Any followed up comments, Victoria, before we call this a day? Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to take in. A lot to take in. It is. It's crazy. It is. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. Anytime, Victoria. Anytime. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this broadcast. Again, I probably won't keep this recording. I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't realize this whole time that it was my end, not hers. But anyway, thank you so much, and let us know what we can do to help you. And we will talk to you soon.